back to The Big Picture. It is 9:13 on your Tuesday morning, and we have a very special guest joining us. We have Senator John Husted joining us. We're talking about the Connect Act, which is to focus on helping youth in foster care from ages 14 to 21 develop meaningful connections with lifelong support networks and to help them plan for independence. First and foremost, Senator John Husted, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Great to join you. Thanks for having me on the show.
So you have a very personal connection to foster care. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I started out life in a foster home. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. My birth mother had 2 children already, and somehow lost her husband in connection with the Vietnam War, and became pregnant from another man, and was faced with a very difficult choice. And ultimately, she chose to have an adoption. So I went to a foster home for a few months. And then the greatest blessing that could have happened to me in life, I got adopted by my mom and dad, Jim and Judy Husted, who raised me on County Road J in rural Northwest Ohio in Williams County. And so I have a great story. I was blessed, but I know that not every child who enters the foster care system is as blessed as I was. And so I've tried to make it one of the pillars of my personal life and professional life, along with my wife, Tina, to try to help as many of those young people as we can.
So how did your past experiences being in foster care and being adopted shape this legislation?
Well, I've tried to pay attention to the system that exists, and I just feel sort of a moral obligation to try to help them. I was blessed, so I think that I have the opportunity to give back and try to help those young people. When I was lieutenant governor, or when I was Speaker of the House, we tried to make it easier for people to do adoptions in Ohio. We did tax credits to help make it more affordable for people to adopt. One of the things I did when I was lieutenant governor with Innovate Ohio is that we created this system. Think about this. We used to have 88 counties that had their own system for becoming a foster parent or adoption. We created a single system so that you fill out one form and you would be eligible in all 88 counties. And just a simple tool like that has helped reduce the number of young people who are waiting for foster care and also for adoptive situations. So we've used technology and innovation to try to be smarter about how we connect people to these services, both families that want to adopt and foster and then those children who are waiting. And then now my wife and I have really been focused on kids who are aging out of foster care because they are very, very vulnerable. And I'm sponsoring the Connect Act, which is designed to help young people from 14 to 21 put resources in to help them make meaningful connections with adults, because they have so much trouble doing that. I mean, put yourself in their situation that you have, maybe you've been in 6 different foster situations. You don't have adults in your life that you can trust. There's no real good mentor. You've been living sort of day to day, not knowing what your future holds. And then you're going to turn 18 or you're going to turn 21, whatever the situation might be. And then you're out there on your own. Not really having been prepared to navigate that. We're trying to help put resources in place to help them navigate that. Meaning, can we connect you to an education? Can we connect you to a job? Can we connect you to housing? Can we connect you to other forms of mentorship that help you get ahead? So that's what we're working on right now. It's so important because if you just put yourself in that position, you're 18 and you can either go and be homeless, without a job, without a path, which happens to many, many young people, or we can connect you to a job, we can connect you to some housing, we can show you a path to get ahead. All of those things are so critically important that we get it right.
And before we get to that point, that later on stage, looking at some statistics here from Pathway Caring for Children, there are more than 16,000 children in foster care just in your home state of Ohio. There are about 7,000 people registered as foster parent or licensed foster families in the state of Ohio. How do we increase that number? Does the Connect Act work at all to increase the process to become a licensed foster family to help bridge that gap between the number of children in the foster system and that number of foster families?
Well, it's certainly an important issue. That's why coming on your show and talking about it is important. Having powerful advocates like Melania Trump has become for youth and foster families and adoption and things of that nature. All of those things create awareness, because in this busy world that we have out there, sometimes people don't know that you can step in and become that foster parent, or if you're willing, maybe even make it something where it's easier, or where you could adopt. That's one of the things I was really focused on as Lieutenant Governor, is trying to expand that pool and make it easier. A lot of times you'll hear people say, well, hey, I would like to adopt, but they make it so hard. Or I would like to be a foster parent, but they make it so hard. I think eliminating the bureaucracy of doing that, while also ensuring that we have good, stable, individuals and homes to service foster environments is a really important thing. So we're trying to build that, but really the most important thing that we can do is to explain to people that it can be you, and we make it easier for them to be able to do that.
And I know you're pulling from a lot of real life experience, from your own experience. What was one thing that Senator Husted really needed when you were transitioning from childhood into adulthood?
Well, we all need mentors. I know that. I was very blessed with a family where my mom gave us unconditional love. My dad had a great work ethic. He worked a lot of times 2 jobs to make sure that we had the things that we needed to have in life. And so I had great examples, good values, hard work, personal responsibility, all the things that prepared me. I had good coaches who helped me with my sports. I had teachers who cared about me. I had a church community that cared about me. I grew up in a small town where people cared about each other. And so those things mattered to me, and they've mattered to me throughout my whole life. I think every one of us has somebody in our lives, whether that's a spouse, a family member, a friend, a coworker, somebody who is there for us in time of need. That's what we all need. And if you grow up in a situation where first of all, you don't have a family to trust, the adults in your life really haven't been all that helpful to you, you could understand why there's a lack of trust and that there's a need for mentorship and support. We've been trying to create that environment in our church. We've been trying to do that through public services. This is what we all need. I think every one of us can attest to that. And so imagine that you grow up in a very unstable environment. You need it even more.
And you mentioned, having these kind of supports that shaped you when it comes to the folks who want to become licensed and some of the legislation around that in the process. In your eyes, who should be a foster parent? When it comes to the scale of person and the type of person, who should become a foster parent?
Well, I mean, if you want to be, it's got to be in your heart. You have to care about, if you care, and if you want to do the right thing by helping young people, then first of all, I think that's the number one thing, is that you've got to have almost a selflessness to you, where you say, hey, I want to make the life of one of these young people better. That may come from your faith tradition. That may come from that's how you are. You're a kind and gentle person, and you want to help. But you got to want to do it, because it's not easy. Understand you're a lot of times going to be helping children who've had a tough life, but I think you can get purpose and meaning in your own life when you do selfless things that help others. I think if that's how you're wired and you're doing it for the right reasons, you're the kind of person that would make a good foster parent. But I also want to say that you can mentor these children that we're talking about from 14 to 21 and not be their foster parent. There are many ways that you can, through working through social service agencies and not-for-profits, be a mentor to these individuals. If you're an employer, you can hire these individuals. If you're if your church wants to take on a project, you can help with this. If your Rotary Club, whatever your service organization is, everybody has an opportunity to impact children who are in this situation. And so it doesn't mean that you have to say, I'm going to, bringing someone into your home and making them part of your family is ultimate all in on trying to help with this. But there are many other ways that you can give of your time and treasure to help.
Okay. So this bill has bipartisan support. It's already passed the House. What comes next, and how optimistic are you that these reforms will go into law?
Well, I'm very optimistic. We have good bipartisan support in the Senate on this. This is an issue that there's a lot of agreement on. We just have to find the right vessel to get it across the line. But I'm confident that we will. And understand this will help, but there's so much more that needs to be done in every one of our communities, because this isn't we don't have a federal system. Federal resources can go out to the states and local communities to help, but ultimately, this is your community that takes care of it. It's the people within your community, it's the employers within your community, it's the social service agencies within your community, and it's you. It's every single one of us trying to do something to make the world a better place, and this is a good group of people that need our help. And when I always say this too, like with young people, just think of the impact that you have taking somebody who's aging out of foster care, and I think they're very likely to end up homeless. They're very likely to be without a job or an education that would lead to a good job. They're very likely to be involved in out of wedlock birth, and they're very likely to be involved with alcohol or drug abuse. Or you help them at that phase, you get them an education or a job skill, you hire them, you get them in stable housing, you provide mentorship, and then they begin to climb the mountain of life towards a hopeful future. Just think of the life trajectory you change by doing this. It's, I think, one of the most noble and long-term valuable things that we can do.
All right, Senator John Husted, thank you so much for joining us, talking about that piece of legislation. So once again, Senator John Husted. Also, it is important to note that Senator John Husted is up for re-election. We have offered time to his Democratic opponent, Sherrod Brown, to come on the show as well.